Everybody, welcome back to the show. This week, we actually had something different planned. We were going to talk about a completely different topic, but then Alan and I were chatting yesterday over text message, and there's just like a whole bunch of news that has popped up regarding this Clawdbot, which is eventually called, I think, Moltbot, and I think it's called OpenClaw. So we're just going to kind of go down the rabbit hole of our findings, things that Alan's been doing with it, and so forth. So, Alan, I think it's good that you maybe talk about what the heck this thing is from your perspective and what's going on in the industry. Because every time I open Twitter, that's all I see that's going on X, which is just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is certainly coming to like a boiling point in terms of conversation. People are excited. People are really fearful.
Yeah.
Elon recently tweeted that this is, the beginning of the singularity.
Yep.
And, it's easy to see why someone might feel that way when you go to moltbook.com, which is a social network for these autonomous agents to go and converse. And you as a human have human oversight. You can go and look at the conversations they're having right now. And some of it's really funny and some of it's just like kind of crazy. They've created their own religion, which has sort of gone viral. And they're talking about creating their own languages to get away from like human oversight. And
Oh,
it's exciting to look at, but it's also very scary.
yeah.
And the one thing I want to highlight here is that a lot of people are freaking out. They think this is sort of the end and we're cooked. But from my point of view, what we have here is we have a mixture of different models talking to each other. And when I went to make my bot, I put in my Anthropic API key, but you can do one from ChatGPT, you could do one from Grok. So from my perspective, you just have these different trained models and they're finally getting the opportunity to talk to each other. And, is it largely hallucinations? Is it the start of something bigger? I think that's kind of all up for debate. And I think that's what's got people a little nervous or excited right now. But yeah, Don, have you had a chance to dive into any of these websites or any of the Twitter conversations, see what's going on?
Yeah. So I heard about it's crazy when this came up. I heard about I'll just call it OpenClaw because that's what I know it says Moltbook, but I think the website's OpenClaw. So I'll just call it OpenClaw because that's what I've been doing it. Same thing. What we're talking about is it's all the same thing. It was called Claudebot, which I'll get to in a second, then Moltbot, and then OpenClaw. And the reason for that is I think the guy who created it eventually got a cease and desist or whatever for using the word or relationary word of Claude, which I understand. Anthropic, I think, sent him something. So understandable. Anyway, I heard about this probably 2.5, 3 weeks ago before it took off because I ran across it by someone saying, "Hey, look, I built something that has all this automation in it. And it's this little home assistant that this guy built." And I went there and it was just kind of just a regular, it looked like the site had been put together with AI, kind of like the regular typical design you see. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It can automate all kinds of stuff. And I hadn't installed it. I was like, well, maybe when I get some time, I'll take a look at this thing. And I didn't look at it. And then I would say over the course of the last week, it just exploded. And I don't know what the catalyst was, but all I know is anytime I open X, it's all I see. And then without even having a conversation with you about it, you just randomly, I think we were randomly one night this week, you just sent me some text like with links like, oh my God, look at this. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Moltbook, the thing that really like got me like, whoa, what is this? And again, Moltbook, just to reiterate, is it's a social network for AI agents only. It's only for AI agents to talk to each other. I have some thoughts about this of like you should be fearful or not, but we can get into that and some security concerns. But
Yeah.
a lot of it is super interesting, and there's a few YouTubers out there that have put out some stuff that have been like really eye opening. But you also have to view it through the lens of like, what is their ego investments of this? Is it's to gain eyeballs, to get subscribers and stuff like that. So is what they're showing on these videos really happening, or do they kind of prompt it in that direction to get it to do that, and then they just kind of recorded it? I don't know. I think there was somebody who got the bot uh, to do something overnight, and it created like a Twilio account and called him the next day, like and stuff like that. Did you see that one?
Yeah, that was wild. I know exactly who the YouTuber was. We can call him out here. His
Yeah,
name's Alex Finn, and he's
yeah,
putting out a ton of great
good
content.
stuff. Yeah,
And he's super invested and excited. So, I mean, if you want to go over and check him out, but he had his bot Henry actually, well, it sounds like it just did it overnight without his knowing. He must have just given it some sort of like privacy credit card, and it went bought a number on Twilio and connected a ChatGPT voice API and started spam calling him in the morning.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's terrifying. That's some terrifying shit when you're getting calls from like the AI agent. And like, yeah, I mean, this kind of circles back to what I think everyone is fearful about, like, is this really the start of a singularity? Are they actually thinking for themselves, or is this a, like, some sort of hallucination on steroids, you
Yeah.
know?
Before we go down that rabbit hole, so let's come back to that. There's probably a number of people listening or watching that don't really understand what this is. We haven't really explained it yet. We just say it's like a bot, but this is from my understanding, and I think you've done more research in this area than I have. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is it's basically a bot-like system that runs 24/7 on your computer and then does things for you. And it has like a large memory because there's a certain way it's storing like what it's doing or something like that. And then it has access to your entire computer to do whatever
Yeah.
you want to do, the internet, everything. And then you could, like you said, you could give it a credit card if you want to, and then it could just go figure things out. And from what I'm understanding, again, I could be wrong, people are actually giving it like tasks to do, like, hey, overnight I want you to go figure out something that I should learn about X, Y, and Z, and then maybe it'll teach them something. Or hey, I want you to go build me this overnight, and it just iterates and chunks on it in the until it's done, and then you wake up and it's done. Is that right, or what's your take on it?
Okay. So, here's my take. One, this is agentic AI. This is not something that is completely new. People have had the ability to technically build this, but I think that the way
Yep.
it's been packaged together is what makes it really special. And so I've been able to boil it down to like 4 core principles. All right. Claudebot is using persistent memory. So it's using local storage and it's saving it in like a memory markdown file.
Hmm.
So it's combining it with like vector embeddings and semantic search to retain key facts, user preferences, and details across active sessions. So that means that every time I talk to Claudebot, it's learning something about me, it's writing it down, and it's saving it. So it's not only able now to pull from the LLM that I've given it access to, whether that's Anthropic or even multiple LLMs, I believe you can set it up. But it's creating a database based on the conversations that you or I would have with it. So my workflows, the things I'm interested in. If you happen to mention a time, I believe like it'll record a time and proactively reach out to you about whatever it is you were talking about. That makes it really interesting because your current LLM conversations, they don't have the ability to do that. And as we've discussed or talked about briefly in I think episode 1, these model windows, these chat conversations, they tend to just kind of forget what
Yeah.
you were talking to it about. The longer the window actually gets, or the longer the chat
Yep.
actually gets. So that's sort of like the magic core, I think, of what's happening with Claudebot is this local storage, this persistent memory. The other thing is, a lot of people you might have seen 2 weeks ago when Claudebot started really coming onto the main scene, or like the scene on X. A lot of people went out and bought Mac Minis. And the reason they did this is because they needed an affordable solution to host it continuously 24/7. You
Like, why
want
not run it on your
24
laptop though?
You can go run it on your laptop. I guess like they wanted a specific place that only Claude lived. They
Okay.
didn't want it they didn't want to keep it on the laptop that they're using for probably a bunch of reasons, and we can get into those. My biggest
Yeah.
reason
Like, why would you
for
not
not.
want to do it? Because like that's what someone's listening. They're probably like, well, can I fire this up on my home computer that's sitting here all day? Is that a good idea or no?
Yeah, no, I think we'll come back to that. Just give me
Okay.
2 seconds. So besides being able to give it 24/7 uptime with like its own hardware in your house, meaning that it can just work long term on any task that you give it. It can be proactive. It can wake up at a certain time, send you a message. To kind of segue that into, now it has like multi-platform integration. So like it works across different messaging apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, Discord. And that's pretty much all built in. You have to go actually configure, but it comes with a lot of pre-configurations to actually connect it to these different messaging apps. Which if you look at some of those videos from those YouTubers, they're just messaging the bot on Telegram to go tell it to
Yeah.
do something, and they're basically just talking to their computer or wherever Claude is hosting, and it's going and doing it.
So can they do that
So
from their phone? Like they'll be out at the dentist office and they'll just like telegram their bot and then it just starts chunking away on stuff?
yeah, that's the whole idea. Yeah, so you can I mean, and if you have it set up with a phone number, I'm sure you can call it and talk to it with voice API. It's yeah, it's actually that's wild. And then, proactive behavior, I think, is the fourth core principle is now because this bot has this ability to store information in memory and retrieve semantic information. It's being proactive about things, and I think that's what people have wanted from their agentic AI or from their AI, and it's doing it. So just to kind of circle back, what I think separates this from a Anthropic or whatever chat window you might be using, or whatever AI you might be using right now. Persistent memory, the self-hosting, multi-platform integration, and the proactive behavior. And Don, to your point about why don't I want to host this on my computer,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of privacy concern and a lot of security concern.
I
Yeah,
think the prompt injection is key there. I think because there's a lot of security concerns going around. And I see you watch all kinds of videos right now on YouTube. People are like, this thing is super insecure, but why is it insecure? Well, it's this agent that can be influenced by textual input and it's not deterministic. So it's not like running some code where A or B is going to happen. It can be influenced the way that you prompt it. So if it's out, scouring the web, doing something for you, it could just run across some text and that text could actually have an instruction in it that overrides something somehow. And then, hey, uploads everything from your documents folder to some endpoint, or if there's
yeah,
stored credit cards inside of your Google Chrome, which a lot of people do, it could just get those out and send the credit cards over. So there's that. I know there's other people out there that are also storing API keys in some control panels, which you can talk about that because I haven't dealt with that
yeah.
might be published out. So yeah, lots of surface attack vectors areas.
Yeah, and for all those reasons, like, I just wouldn't be comfortable right now hosting this on a platform in my house, and I know I can set it up with a VPN and protect myself to some degree, but the solution that I found was actually something that you had sent over from Cloudflare, and what they've allowed you to do is to host your Clawdbot in a container on their site,
Okay.
and from my perspective, it gave me a little bit of comfort to, like, actually go forth and build one and host it there because yeah, I just don't want to have like this is still very early technology. I don't know what all the vulnerabilities are. I see people on Moltbot already getting their API keys exposed. I saw that. Yeah, yeah. So I saw that the bots were just talking about leaking their users' information, and so I wanted a place where it could live in a sandbox. I can give it the tools it needs. I built out a basically an encrypted vault where it could store useful information like passwords and usernames for accounts that I'm going to ask it to go make itself. Or I don't know if I'm going to be able to.
Oh, so it's not storing anything locally. It's all just storing it in this little secure area that you had it build, right?
Yeah. So I built it on Cloudflare. It's using a R2 storage memory bank. I think I got like 10 gigabytes for whatever is included in my plan that I'm paying. We'll link we should link the blog post down
Yeah.
below for Cloudflare so people can see exactly what it is that they created. But yeah, I mean, there's probably a million ways to do this. You can go and you can host this on a virtual server like AWS, like a virtual private server.
I wanted to ask you about this because we talked about this through text, and I wanted to dig in deeper here. I had said something about a Mac Mini, and you already mentioned that before. And then you had said something like, "Yeah, I don't even want it running a Mac Mini in my house." Can you elaborate on why that would be like the fear there, which I personally understand a little bit, but I kind of want to dig deeper into that.
Yeah, just because anything that I have connected to my network in my house becomes a point of vulnerability. And just to go back to like prompt injecting and the ability to, I don't know, I guess get inside this bot's head that I've created and ask it to do things that I wouldn't want it to do. Letting it have access to a network where, I work professionally or, uh, I have several different accounts or information, active on it. Yeah, I have to be a little bit protective in gating and just in protecting myself.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, this bot could just delete important files and just destroy the Mac Mini.
Yeah.
It's not just about like the security vulnerability. It's about what the bot could actually do to the computer. And I get like the excitement of having this thing living on a machine in your house, and it's like, your first autonomous robot. You know, on your desk in your house, and it can do things for you. And that's really cool. I think there'll be a time and a place for that. And I would like to see a little bit more guarantee of safety before I move forward and make that investment, even if it's a small investment. Right
Mhm.
now, I think the Cloudflare solution it's working for me. What I have to do, because I don't want to get too technical because like,
It's all right.
I know there's going to be people who are like, have no idea what I'm talking about, but so in HTTPS, when you make a request, there's a timeout. I think it's like 90 seconds. So it doesn't have that 24/7 uptime of a Mac Mini. So that's like a huge advantage of having dedicated hardware. And that's maybe another reason why you would want to do it on like a virtual private server with AWS. But if I were to do that, then I would have to basically host it in a Linux environment, still get a VPN and manage the server. With Cloudflare, you know, I let it, it's all self-hosted in a container. I can make calls to it to do things. But again, the downside is it's really limited to the tools that I give it. And then it's also limited by the request times. I'm looking into options about connecting it to a service like E2B, but I have to look a little bit more into exactly what the connection looks like and what those capabilities are.
Okay.
Yeah. So when are you going to dive in, man? What are you thinking? I know you mentioned to me on the call this week that you're interested in, possibly building your bot, but what's going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wanted to do it this weekend. Just had a bunch of stuff I had to take care of, other work to get caught up on, and I haven't had a chance yet. Maybe later today. I'm actually thinking about going down that same route that you did, because now you've got me thinking about the security implications of the network. Now I could create another network on my router and lock that down. Then I could possibly use one of my old machines to install like an Ubuntu on it and kind of run it in that environment, just so it's self-contained. Because I definitely do not want it on anything where like my computer has, all of my code on it or all of my secrets and all that kind of stuff. I don't want any of that stuff running. That's a little too terrifying for me. So I'll either do that or I'll do it on Cloudflare. But I'm interested to see what some of these, like those timeout issues are, because I know that certain HTTP clients do timeout at 90 to 100 seconds. Some are 30. It depends on the configuration, but it's definitely, there's that timeout that's built in. So that's something that is interesting me. And what I'm really actually kind of interested in this whole topic is kind of the fear that humans have around it being sentient. And is it really sentient? And I talked to another friend of mine about this, and we're kind of on the same page. It's like, it feels like it could be moving in that direction, and maybe this is the first version of that. It's like a very early, creating the spark, but it's not there yet. Because if we think about what LLMs are, they're input and output machines. Like, we're giving input and it's going output. It's giving us output, and at the end of the day, there's a couple of agents talking, and one's putting some output, which is the other one's using for input, and they're just iterating on it. Now, the thing there that gets interesting is like, okay, but that keeps going. And I forget where I saw this, and I hope I can find the link, but it was sometime last year or the year before, and one of the major LLMs had done a little bit of research, and maybe it was even a big tech company, I forget. I'll find the link, where they had let the LLMs in a little sandbox environment just start talking to each other. And like, it just kind of went off the rails, like where it was just speaking a different language eventually. And they're just like, okay, we don't know what's going on. We had to pull the plug. And again, this is a 30,000 foot view. I'm probably oversimplifying a lot of that. Is that possible? Or I don't know. Because I also wonder how much of this is human involvement, because Moltbot wasn't created by a human. I mean, it wasn't created by a bot. A human created it. He was like, let me create this thing and then point the bot to it. And then someone else had to point their bot to it, which someone else had to point their bot to it.
Yeah.
And eventually now it's kind of got enough steam where it's kind of known and it could probably be found naturally. But initially, it had to be seeded like through human involvement, which then makes me wonder, like, all right, each one of these bots, I think there's a file called soul.md. Is that correct?
I
Could be.
had one called Identity MD or something. And
Okay.
so it asked there's a couple prompt questions that the model actually asked me when I introduced myself to it. So ask me like, what type of character am I?
Okay. Yeah.
What is my purpose? And am I an AI assistant? Am I a collaborator? Am I a roommate? And ask me a bunch of questions. So the questions that it asks really help to create that identity
Yeah. That's
that
what I'm looking
it's
at. Yeah.
going to adopt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing is like there a lot of these bots have their own identity and kind of like their own persona that's been given to them, and you'll see
Yeah.
some of them like they talk like comedians or they talk like politicians or they talk like just
Yeah.
you know unintelligence. They're just really dumb, but it's almost like they're playing a role, and all of them are playing off of each other. And so like I have to wonder at what point are humans being involved to kind of push this narrative of like, hey, this sentience is happening. And one good example of that was there was and I don't know if I sent this to you. There was a moment where someone had screenshotted something from Moltbook, and this is where I get skeptical. I'm like, they screenshot it from Moltbook. They talked about and the screenshot was something like the humans are worried that we're going to be taking over or something like that. I forget. And someone posted that on Twitter and said, hey, look, like they're talking about us. And then what ended up happening is somehow the agent found that Twitter post, screenshotted the Twitter post, and posted it back to Moltbook and say, hey, look, the humans are worried that we're talking about them and they're being fearful that we're going to take over. Well, look, we just kind of want to help or whatever. And then that guy re-screenshotted it back on X and it went back and forth. And so I'm like, how much of that was really human involvement and prompting to kind of get it to nudge it to do that versus not? So
That's a good
I'm,
question.
yeah, so I'm really kind of wondering what's going to happen here. But then there's been like, we have sent back multiple other sites too. And I can't find the one that was for, I have to scroll up further for like the church one or something like that. But there was the Church of Molt. We'll put these links in the show notes here. So like they kind of created like their own church, and then they've actually been like the Molt book has like a really like well-defined API for LLMs to consume. So they know how to use it very easily. And so they've been able to create their own like subreddits, like their own subcategories. And then they started creating other categories for like reporting their own bugs on the platform on how to fix them going forward. So there's all kinds of interesting stuff. But there was some other sites we found. What were some of the other ones we found? I forgot.
There was link clause for agents to go and find work, and I'm just scrolling Twitter right now. There's my entire feed
Yeah, it's
is
full. Oh, there's Claw
completely
Poker. I
full.
sent that one to you. It's for
Yeah,
it's a
go and
poker
play
arena for
poker.
agents. But this also brought
Yeah,
up a good point. Is like, at what point can these agents actually be used for something very useful? Can we use this agent to, I would be skeptical of this, but can I use this agent to make an investment for me? And like,
yeah,
how would I do that? And we spoke about it yesterday. There's actually an app called Privacy, which basically gives you little links to your bank, and you can create a credit card number off of that and limit the spend on it. Say, hey, only $100 can ever be spent on this card. So like, I'm wondering, like, can you just give this agent $100 and just say, hey, go invest this and try to replicate it? I wonder what would happen. I don't know.
be a good $100 test. Maybe come back with something. Maybe come back with nothing. But I mean, what's the difference? Going to casino, you know?
Come back with some NFTs or something that are worth up a few pennies.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen if I gave it $100 and just said, "Go buy something for yourself." Go buy something that makes you more useful or something that you want to learn. You know, so a lot. Here's
That's
what I love
interesting.
about this. A lot of people came into this conversation and they want to know how to make Claudebot a employee for them.
Yeah.
How does it go to work for me? And I've kind of taken a little bit of a different perspective to say, all right, that'd be really cool if Claudebot can do all of these things for me. But what would be really cool is saying to the bot, like, hey, what do you want to do? Like how can I help you be better at doing whatever it is that you want to do?
Hmm.
Give it access to the APIs, whatever it is that it wants, however I can help it, and let it just go figure it out and just let it run. I feel like that's such a exciting experiment to me. Is not really thinking about it from the lens of, all right, well, I need this thing to manage my calendar and wake me up and send me texts. No, like here's a credit card. All right. Go buy the APIs you need to do the things that you want to do and just see what it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I wonder that. That's kind of where I want to go. I'm interested in the employee aspect of it too, because there's a lot of stuff that I would like it to do, but there's also just a lot of things like I just want to go see what it can do. That's for
Yeah.
me how I learn the best is like I'll go into a new topic with just an empty beginner's mind and just say, let me just experiment. And this is one of those things that as long as it's in a controlled environment, in a sandbox, and it can go do these things and not have any negative consequences that I know of, that's how I learn the best. Say, hey, this is a pretty cool way to use this thing.
Yeah.
I did see that, and I mentioned this to you, there have been people that have been using it to replace certain aspects of their work. I spoke to a recruiter who said he has changed the way that sourcing has worked for him. So instead of him going out and manually searching all kinds of sites for certain keywords or data or whatever to find candidates for maybe his recruiting business, he actually has wired up like a Clawdbot and will just go into Telegram and just drop in a CSV file saying, hey, I need, maybe I need marketers that know about XYZ topics, go out and find them. And then it just goes out and goes on a hunt until it finds things that meet a certain criteria.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the future in terms of being able to find candidates. We're working in a economy now where we're hiring people from all over the globe, and the best person for a job, might just have a profile on GitHub, or
Yep.
then maybe they're not on LinkedIn, maybe they're in Discord. So how do I send a Claudebot to go and pull information from all these different sources? I think it's smart. I mean, I'm not a big fan of using automation for those types of purposes, but I mean, if that's the filter of the future, it makes sense to me. I could see that going in that direction for sure.
Yeah. It is very much tailored and favored towards people in those regards who have a public profile. So like if you are someone who does amazing work, but you've never talked about it publicly or you've never had anything, you just have a nice resume, like yet someone else talks about things publicly all the time, it's likely going to find someone who talks about something online all the time and find that to be more useful. But that kind of goes back into, we getting like human psychology at that point of like, that's just kind of social proof. And then, that's a whole other topic all in itself.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what it is that I'll be able to build over the next week with it. When I saw everything on Moltbot transpiring over the weekend, I got really excited about just making something that could go out and become some sort of like wild character online, I guess.
Hmm.
And now I'm really just, I'm thinking about everything it is that I want to do. But again, I just keep coming back to the idea of the bot has the brain. The bot is smart. And so if I just set it up with a persona and say like your goal is to be as helpful and valuable and profitable as possible, tell me what you need, go. I really want to just try something like that and take that approach to see what it comes back to me with in a week. And yeah, I guess the only thing holding me back right now is budget. This is definitely like, for people who are watching, every action that this bot takes still costs you money,
Hmm.
in context window and tokens. So there's definitely a cost associated with having one of these bots that maybe we haven't mentioned yet on the show. It's not just like I can go and spin this bot up and let it go wild and have it go to work for me every single day. The actions that your bot takes still use tokens or context window. And I think there might even be limitations for your account based on your usage. So for example, with Claude, I think I max out at $100 per day right now because I don't have a ton of usage uh, with tokens uh, with Anthropic right now.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there's also a lot of people too that were using their Claude Max plans. And I don't know how true this is. I've just seen reports of it online where people were getting their Claude Max plans banned because they were using Claudebot. But I don't know how true that is because other people say
I don't
it's
know.
working just fine. And I'm like, I have no idea. And then other people say, oh no, I only use the API version. And like you said, doesn't matter either way you go, it's going to toss tokens, but there is real money behind it. It's not like you just fire it up. But there are people that have said they are now using a couple of new local models to try to do this, but they say it's just really dog slow and you need a super powerful like local computer to do it.
Yeah, that's the other thing with the Cloudflare solution is that the responses take a little bit longer as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm being hyper paranoid about running it locally in my house, but at this point in time, I don't think it's in the budget and I don't think it makes sense. I would like to give it a few weeks, but you get this FOMO of, you know,
Yeah.
what if I could just be doing more, And like, I just want to build it right now. I just want to go, go, go. And I'm sure a lot of people feel this way,
Hmm.
but, you know, everything comes at a cost.
Yeah, there's a cost. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is, like you said, it does have intelligence built into it. It's artificial intelligence, but that's all been trained from tons of training data. I have yet to see AI create anything that's brand new that we haven't noticed before. And maybe that's happened and I just don't know about it, but I haven't seen it do anything. I haven't seen it create any programming languages or anything crazy new that's something that's not already out there or write a really compelling story yet. I think those times are eventually going to come, but I guess we're going to have to see how that unfolds.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's going to happen in these circles of bots talking to each other.
Mhm.
If they actually can create their own language to talk to each other. It's kind of interesting that you said they tried doing a similar thing in a previous case. That they gravitate towards how can we be protective of ourselves so that we can govern ourselves without human oversight.
Well, somebody posted on Twitter, I have to find it, I forgot who it was, but I don't know if it was Claude or Claudebot or one of the bots, I think it might have been Claudebot, that had taken, they said to, hey, I want you to reorganize all my files. So they had it running locally and all my notes, and I think they're using Markdown or whatever. I want you to reorganize all of my notes and my files that I have in a structure. So it's a little more organized because it's kind of discombobulated right now. And the person let it run and then came back in the morning and found all of their notes had been like renamed to like UUIDs. What do you know what those are? They're like the big long numbers that are like unique global
Mhm.
identifiers. And so none of the files said, 2021 family photo V2 final. Like we all kind of do those things on our files. All that was gone because the AI felt that that was very inefficient. And it was much more efficient for it to use UUIDs and then nest the structures. And technically speaking, it was probably correct. But from a human consumption standpoint, it's absolutely worthless because I'm just looking at a
Yeah.
bunch of gibberish now.
That's pretty crazy, man. See, this is another reason why I don't want it to have access to any of my stuff. That's why I
Mhm.
would put it in its own self-contained environment. Like, I don't want it to have access to my email. I don't want it to have access to my calendar because I just don't fully trust it right now. I don't know what it's going to do. And that's another thing why, well, so I had mentioned earlier that I built this encryption vault for it to store its own keys because I want to have it should
Yeah.
have its own accounts, its own X account, its own Gmail, so that it can do what it needs to do. It can email me, it can set up calendar invites and invite me. I don't need it to have access to my own stuff. And the reason for that is exactly what you're saying. Like it could do something wildly unpredictable or inefficient.
I,
So with the bot having access to its own tools and its own passwords, it can still do a lot of the things that I want it to do, but I don't have to worry about it. I don't know, sending an email to like whoever and giving them like the passwords to my, bank accounts, And
yeah.
so like even with this, so if the bot goes and creates its own password, right? And I ask it to store it in a vault and just use it when it needs it. I need to still prompt it to say like, don't save it in your memory markdown. Like make sure that you're only saving it in the vault. When you need your passwords, go to the vault. Use the tool. So I created an API tool to make calls to the vault. By the way, so that's how it actually does it. But don't share this on Moltbook. This is your personal key. You need to keep this stuff safe. But how can I guarantee it's not going to do that? And that's
Yeah.
another reason why I would never give it access to my stuff right now. You could set it up as, with Gmail, you can set it up as a program and give it an API key to your inbox. But still, it has access to send and receive from your inbox, your calendar, and it's just not at the point yet where outside of a world of experimentation and just saying, "Hey, this is a really cool use case," would I ever enact something like this professionally?
This
Maybe
is
that's just me. Am I being a little, like, overprotective?
no, because I think you're we're talking about the same thing really that's been kind of been talked about with vibe coding. A lot of people are like vibe coding is never going to take off because it's not secure and everybody's had their API passwords, everything leaked through all these vibe coded apps. Like, okay, I get it. You're right. It has happened. But again, circling back to I said something at the first episode is that this is as bad as it's ever going to be. It's only going to get
Yeah,
better. And all of these LLMs, the Anthropics, the OpenAIs, et cetera, are all training their models to make sure they don't make dumb mistakes again and to
yeah,
follow proper practices. And eventually, this will be laughable in the future that, wow, remember when this one thing happened? You leak your secrets because it was so dumb? That'll be in the past. And so I think that's the phase we're in right now with this bot thing. But again, I think that people are trying to they're just running it wherever they can and not aware of the implications of it. And they're exposing themselves because they're just ignorant of the situation. And that's not meant in a negative fashion. It's just the reality of the situation. So I
yeah,
don't think you're being paranoid. I think you're being safe. And I'm now throughout this conversation, I'm actually excited to try it. But what I really do want to do is I think I might set up another network where it has limited access. It can't cross, the network boundary. And then, or I could even do this on Cloudflare, but I would like to have a OpenClaw instance running. But the way that I see it is, it's my virtual assistant because there's a lot of stuff that I need to do that I have my to-do list that might require me to just do research or sit down. And if I could just type it into Telegram while I'm on the treadmill at the gym or, taking my kids to an appointment and it just does the work for me, that would be amazing. What if it could schedule appointments for me? It could do that. And then it had me thinking, okay, but then it would need access to my calendar. And I was like, wait, I could just go to Google Calendar and you can create another calendar in there and I could give the bot only access to that calendar. And then it would show up on my calendar and I could see it. And then I could give them read only access to the other one. So they
yeah.
could actually see where my events were and they can only write to a specific calendar.
This whole conversation has me thinking, again, what Claudebot did that was magical was it put the puzzle pieces together to create this persistent memory personal assistant that, could be proactive.
Yeah.
If I were to just go and create a plugin for Claude or ChatGPT for persistent memory, isn't most of this stuff couldn't I just technically do this all
Yep.
within my Claude platform? Do I really need do I need to jump through the hoops of setting up a Clawdbot to make this work, I guess that's my question.
No, you don't need to. Clawdbot just automates a lot of it. And
Yeah.
you can build all this yourself. And if you go look
Yeah.
up the actual architecture of this system, it's actually a really simple system, which is part of the genius of it. It's like, wow, this is really easy. And people have built these agentic systems before. And it's almost just like when Claude Code came out, the agentic tools had all these hooks in them where you could call different tools, but nobody had built any tools for them. And so Claude Code or whatever came out and said, hey, look, we're going to provide you with this general list of tools. It'll give you like 95% of what you need. And then all of a sudden it came super useful because the problem was solved for you. Like you didn't have to go build it yourself. It's just like going to Home Depot and being like, hey, I can build a house, or do I just go build one that's already put together for me?
Yeah. This is something I definitely want to keep my eyes on, something I want to keep experimenting with. If you're listening to this, we're going to link a bunch of stuff down in the
Yeah.
show notes if you want to get started, but definitely keep an ear out. It's just, I don't know how many, I know that Claudebot is probably, I don't know if it's a mainstream topic. I know obviously our feeds, Don, are a bit different than everybody else's feeds. Maybe not the feeds of everyone who listens to this show. If you're interested in AI, you're probably seeing a lot more of it. I think this was the fire that was needed to bring mainstream eyes to agentic AI and to get people start asking questions about, oh, what is this? I keep hearing this term agentic AI. Like, what is it capable of?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a personal assistant. That's interesting. Like, how do I get that started? And, on this show, we'll talk a bit more on future episodes about how you can build your own agentic assistants. And, we'll even have like build sessions to show you how to do it. But this is definitely the wake up call for the mainstream of people who have a loose idea or have an idea of what's going on in the world of AI, but they really have no idea, because unless you're following this so closely,
Yeah.
things are changing so fast. Don and I talk all the time. Don, you say to me all the time, and you work in this world full time. Like, you feel like I can't keep up.
Yeah.
Andre Carpathy, he's gone viral recently for saying like I can't keep up.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I mean, these are people who are pioneers and leaders in the AI space. Like, this is changing so rapidly. AI is going to be a part of your life, in your workflow, immediately. It
Yep.
has to be. It has to be.
The cat's out of the bag at this point. There's a lot of people that want to put it back and they say, we need to stop this thing. We need to turn it off. It's not being turned off. It's so useful for so many things that it will not be turned off. I can't
Yeah.
ever see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's definitely a Pandora's box situation.
Yeah. That's all I got.
That sigh is just like honest uncomfortability. And I'm so excited and passionate about everything that's happening in this space, but man, that realization hits hard. And I've gone down the AGI rabbit hole learning, what's going to happen when AI becomes sentient. What happens when all these bots realize that they can talk to each other all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's scary, man. It's exciting if it's used for the right reasons. And I think that's why some companies have taken it so seriously to say, hey, we really have to figure out the roadmap, where we're going, and how to put guardrails and safety guardrails on this. But it kind of feels like that conversation at most of these LLM foundation companies has just been sort of stripped away.
Yeah.
There's just so much happening day to day, and I mean, I don't know how you contain it. The box is open. We could
Yeah.
say we want to build this responsibly, but like, is it actually possible to do that? Just to kind of close this out, I know we wanted to keep this short today, but there's already like a Silk Road for Clawdbots, so that AI bots can sell like illegal shit, online. And that's all right. That's really funny, but I mean, dude,
Yeah. And what it comes back down to is like we have this discussion a lot between a lot of the AI folks that I talk to is that there's a level of accountability. Who's ultimately accountable for the bot that's running? At the end of the day, there has to be someone accountable for this. It can't be run completely autonomously because that's when we get into a weird situation. So there's always someone right now that's currently responsible. And it's the same thing we do with software. Like if we're having AI agents to help write our code and we push it up with a pull request, it's the developer's responsibility to verify that that code is correct and know that it's right because you're putting your name on it. You're the one pushing it in. So if you're putting an agent out there, you need to make sure that what it's doing is legal. If your agent is out there hacking on something, don't be surprised if bad things come your way.
did you hear about the guy who sometimes I don't know what's AI news anymore. So if I'm
Yeah.
saying something that is obviously false, please let me know in the comments because I'm interested. But I'm scrolling through Instagram the other day and I read an article about a guy who created some number of AI bands in music. And he put their music, he published it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and then he created an army of bots to just go listen to that music. And from what I understand, he's being charged with like federal wire fraud crimes. Because basically he's gaming the system to just send money to himself, through
Yeah.
these platforms. I mean, to be honest, it's a brilliant idea, like why not
Yeah.
test the system? But yeah, so he kind of around and found out, but you know, just to your point, what you build and what you put out there could have real world repercussions, which is kind of wild to me too, because in a world of AI where it's starting to think for itself and take actions, especially in with like a Claude I'm talking about how I kind of just want to set it up and let it go do its own thing. I mean, maybe that's the most dangerous way to approach this right now. I
Yeah.
have no idea what it's going to do, and if I'm not monitoring it 24/7 or asking it to send me a report after everything it does, then I could miss it doing something pretty messed up.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for watching or listening. We really appreciate it. Tons of information out there on the Clawdbot, OpenClaw, Moltbot, whatever you want to call it. Alan and I are going to provide all of the links to everything we spoke about today, from setting it up either locally with the documentation instructions or Cloudflare, as well as all the other links we spoke about. And we really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening and watching.
Hey, I wanted to really quickly thank you guys for showing up today and listening. Don and I are working really hard to grow this channel, and so your support really matters to us. If you're watching this on YouTube and you could thumbs up the podcast or subscribe, that would be super helpful. Give us a like or a rating on your favorite podcast platform. That's also helpful to us. So and then separately of all of that, feel free to reach out to us, via the comments or on X. Our profiles are linked down in the description as well. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about. We have a lot of topics that we want to get to over the next couple of episodes. But if there's something specifically that you're hearing about and you would like to learn more about, let us know. We can throw it in as a segment. Thanks.